If you're trying to decide between North Arlington and McLean, Virginia, you're not just choosing between two locations. You're choosing between two versions of your life. And I don't say that lightly, because after more than 20 years in real estate, working with hundreds of buyers, this is one of those decisions where people don't always realize what they actually chose until they're living it. I've had plenty of clients sit across from me and say, Brian, we've narrowed it down to North Arlington and McLean, but we're stuck. And I always pause when they say that, because on paper, these two places do seem similar. Close to DC, expensive, highly regarded, but in reality, they offer completely different daily experiences. And I've seen people get this right and love where they live for years. And I've seen people make the wrong call, not because they made a bad decision, but because they didn't fully understand what it was that they were choosing. So in this video, I want to slow this down and walk you through it the way that I do with my clients. Not just the homes, not just the numbers, but what your life actually looks like on a random Wednesday morning, on a Saturday afternoon, on a weeknight, when you're deciding whether to go out or to stay in. Because somewhere in this video, you are going to recognize yourself. And when you do, that will be your answer. Before we talk about homes or neighborhoods, there's a better question to ask. Not what can I afford, not even which area has the best schools, but this: what kind of rhythm do I want my life to have? Because North Arlington and McLean don't just offer different houses, they offer different rhythms. Over the years, I've noticed something very consistent about the people who choose North Arlington. They don't just stumble into it, they grow into it. A lot of them started somewhere else first, usually right in downtown DC, right after college or grad school or law school. They're renting a small apartment, walking everywhere, living that city life, and it works until it starts to shift. They're a few years into their career. They meet someone. Now there's a spouse, maybe a kid, maybe a dog. And that one-bedroom apartment suddenly feels smaller than it used to. But here's the key. They're not ready to leave that lifestyle. They don't want to feel disconnected. They don't want to lose Metro. They don't want to give up saying, let's just go into DC tonight. So instead of moving far out, they move just across the river. And that's where North Arlington becomes the natural landing spot, because it's not a departure from that prior life. It's an evolution of it. You're still connected, still mobile, still part of that same ecosystem. But now you're upgrading how you live. You wake up in the morning and your day can start without getting in the car. Maybe you walk over to grab coffee at Northside Social in Clarendon or Compass Coffee nearby. You see people out along Wilson Boulevard, dogs being walked, strollers moving along. Maybe you hop onto the Custis Trail for a walk or a quick bike ride, or even commuting into DC by bicycle. There's movement, there's life, but it's not chaotic, it's just active. And that's the subtle difference. You're not planning your day around movement. You are already in it. And I've seen this play out over and over again. Couples who say, we just need more room, but we don't want to lose everything else. And that everything else matters more than they realize. It's walking to restaurants in Clarendon or Ballston, hopping on the Metro without thinking about it, being minutes into DC not 45 minutes away, and having options. And eventually schools enter into the conversation as well, and North Arlington solves that too. So what starts as we don't want to leave the city turns into we can stay close and actually build our life here. And I'll give you a real example of this. A good friend of mine from law school used to live out in Leesburg, in a big home out there. And like a lot of people out that way, he was doing the long commute every day into DC. And at first, it's manageable. Then it just becomes routine, and then it becomes draining. And eventually, your life starts revolving around the commute. So, about 10 or 12 years ago, he came to me and said, "Brian, I think it's time." We started looking closer in. Old Town, Falls Church, then North Arlington, and we found a new construction home in Lion Village. It was a spec build, but we got in at just the right time. So he and his wife were able to choose a lot of the final finishes. They bought it for just around $2 million. Today, that home is worth closer to $3 million. But what they loved most over time was how effortless everything became. They could walk down the street to Clarendon for dinner, grab coffee on a Sunday morning without even thinking about it. Their kids grew up playing in the nearby parks, walking the neighborhood streets, and even simple things, community events near Lion Village Community House, quick access to everything along Clarendon and Wilson. It just became part of their rhythm. And when I think about that move, it wasn't just buying a house. It was changing how they lived every day. Now, McLean. McLean is a very different decision. You don't move to McLean to stay connected to energy. You move to McLean to step back from it. Not completely, but intentionally. Over the years, I've held open houses in all kinds of homes in McLean. Condos in places like the Colonies, all the way up to multi-million-dollar estates. And what's interesting is this. No matter the price, the buyers walking through those homes are usually looking for the exact same thing. They want proximity to DC. They want access to Tyson's. They want to be near opportunity, but not surrounded by it. There's this balance that people are searching for in McLean. Not urban, certainly not rural, but something in between. Almost like controlled separation. You might be driving down Dolly Madison Boulevard or cutting through neighborhoods off Old Dominion Drive. And within minutes, you've gone from being near everything to feeling like you've stepped away from all of it. That transition happens fast in McLean. And for a lot of people, that's exactly what they're looking for and what they are paying for. And you see the rhythm of life in McLean in much quieter ways. It's not people spilling onto sidewalks like in Clarendon. It's more intentional. Mornings at Greenberry's coffee. People recognizing each other. The same orders, the same routines. Breakfast at McLean Family Restaurant, a place that's been there forever. Afternoons filled with carpools, kids' sports, structured days. And when people talk about community in McLean, it often centers around places like the McLean Community Center, local events, seasonal gatherings, things that aren't flashy, but are consistent. And over time, what people appreciate most isn't just the house. It's the predictability, the familiarity, running into the same people, seeing your children grow up in the same circles. And it's no surprise that McLean attracts politicians, policy professionals, people connected to DC, and yes, some low-key DC celebrities. People who want proximity to power without living inside the noise of it. Now, this is where reality sets in. North Arlington gives you options. The metro lines through the Rosslyn-Ballston corridor. bike access along the Custis Trail, and quick drives into DC over Key Bridge or Roosevelt Bridge. You're not locked into one way of moving. McLean, on the other hand, is more structured. You're driving more, planning more, and for some people, that is perfectly fine. For others, it's a bit of an adjustment. I had a client who moved to McLean for all the right reasons. They loved the house, they loved the schools, and after a few months, they said, "Brian, I didn't realize how much time I would be spending in the car." This was not regret, it was just reality. And this is where I help people out a lot. Because once we map out your actual day, your commute, your schedule, your lifestyle, this decision becomes clear very quickly. If you want, I've put together a curated breakdown of neighborhoods based on commute patterns. Just reach out and I will send it to you. At some point, this becomes less about houses and more about what you are prioritizing. In North Arlington, you're choosing lifestyle, proximity, and access. In McLean, you're choosing space, privacy, and separation. I had a buyer once say this perfectly: "I feel like I'm choosing between my life outside the house and my life inside the house." That is exactly right. Here's where some people make mistakes. They fall in love with a house before they understand the lifestyle. Big house in McLean, but they miss the energy. Or vibrant Arlington, but they crave more space. And a year later, something just feels slightly off. The happiest clients that I have worked with are not necessarily the ones who got the best deal. They're the ones who chose the life that actually fits them the best. North Arlington buyers who wanted energy, they love it. McLean buyers who wanted space and calm, they love it. But when someone chooses one while quietly wanting the other, that's when regret can slowly creep in. So, if you are trying to figure this out, don't just scroll listings online, talk it through. Because once we align your lifestyle, your priorities, your day-to-day life, it becomes clear very quickly. And if you want, I'll send you a curated list of homes in both North Arlington and McLean that match exactly what you're looking for in terms of your lifestyle and your budget.